start with our feet hip width apart, nice and parallel, facing yourself in the mirror if you can, that would be great. And let's just have a little look at the effect of the ankles, rolling in the ankles in and out on the whole leg. So the weight through the feet, the weight distribution in the feet, when you're rolling in, those ankles collapse, that makes the knees rotate inwards towards each other. You can actually feel it all the way up here in your thighs as well. And then maybe when you roll all the way out to the outside edge of your ankles, you'll notice a difference then. The knees start to roll out away from each other, the ankle joint has changed, and all of this will have an overall effect on the spine and everything else. So let's try and find that middle ground where we're equally weighted between the big toe joint, little toe joint and the heel, and then our plumb line is coming straight down through the centre of the body. And let's just pitch forwards and backwards a little bit to find that middle point. Thinking about this lovely straight line down through the centre. Allowing the shoulders to relax, shoulders are on the same level, hips are on the same level, both sides of the waist are nice and equal. If you can see that in a mirror, it would be great. And then I'm thinking about lifting the crown of my head up towards the ceiling and at the same time sending my tailbone down. Maybe just close your eyes, have a little rock forwards and backwards, maybe side to side on those feet. Find that central point. And then just take some deep breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. So today, because the class is always a bit slower, this particular class, this was the old C class, now it's become a B class, I want you to be able to really tune in to exactly where your body is today. And that might be different to how it was yesterday, how it will be tomorrow, depending on what you're doing, how tired you are. So just observing how you are today and then opening the eyes. So we're going to think about our chest and back lift. And as I said earlier, getting bigger and bigger with these movements. So I'm just going to put my hand on my chest here. I'm going to think about lifting my chest up towards the ceiling and just looking up to the ceiling. And although I've got my hand here because this is the part that I want to lift, I'm thinking about how that changes the vertebrae in my spine, and specifically in my thoracic spine. And then I'm going to come through a neutral position, back to that lengthened position, and just take my chin onto my chest. And that's as far as I'm going to go for now. Letting that head, and explore how far does that head go before you start to join in with the collarbone and the shoulders. Not very far. Come up through your neutral, through your good standing posture, and then lifting up and back. So remember, it's not about the head, it's actually about the chest. And actually, if you keep your hand there, notice that it doesn't move. It's sinking a little bit as I take my head down, and then I'm lifting through my neutral position, and now I'm trying to lift that chest up even more, opening up at the front of the ribs, and the head just comfortably will look up. And now let's go a little bit more. So chin towards the chest. Now, and let the arms hang. I'm going to let that arm drop down. Let those arms fall forwards because you've allowed your collarbone to round forwards. Your shoulders have rounded forwards. The pelvis is still in neutral. My weight is really even over my feet. I'm going to come up through the centre. You probably won't go too much further back each time. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll learn to explore and relax into that a little bit more. This time I'm going to let my upper back round even more. I'm going to bend my knees and just sort of reach my fingertips just past my knees and then straighten. So I'm imagining the mobilisation of my spine, up and back. If that neck starts to feel uncomfortable when you're taking that up position and you feel like you need to scrunch your face up, you've gone too far with that neck. Going a little bit lower this time, I'm going halfway towards the floor. Knees are bent, spine is rounded, and then I'm unravelling. As I unravel, I'm straightening my legs, coming through that wonderful neutral, going up, 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 up with that chest. Head goes back, but it's really comfortable. My face, it feels like my face is up towards the ceiling. Come through your neutral. Let's bend the knees maybe a little bit more. Once you've gone through this stage here, so my shoulders are rounded forwards, my arms are hanging, then I feel like I have to bend my knees. I'm really rounding out my lower back, and then I'm going to let my head hang. I'm just going to nod my head. I'm touching the floor now. My legs are bent, but only slightly, and then rolling up. Explore that mobilisation, the articulation of the spine. Let's take one more. Keeping those legs straight, going all the way up and back. Just go as far as you're comfortable. Come through a nice neutral, chin down onto the chest. Imagine you're drawing a chalk line down your centre. Let those arms hang, maybe shake the hands, shake the arms, soft knees, all the way down. Just hang here for a moment, nod the head, shake the head. Make sure you're not holding any tension anywhere in that body. So just getting bigger and bigger with our chest lift and our roll down there. Let's take the feet a little bit wider, so more just inside your shoulder width apart, and let's try and reach up and touch the ceiling. So we're lifting the rib cage off of the hips. We're now going to look at exploring the movement in the side seam of your back. Let's hold both arms up. So both side seams of your torso, pitch that weight forwards a little bit, tapping both heels, and then let the arms lower the eye line. We've got this wonderful length in the spine, and just gently we're reaching down side to side. Making sure you take your head with you. Remember, the spine finishes right in the base of the skull. So you want to continue that curve. Another quite nice way to think about these things is to picture the area that you're trying to move. And so for both of these last ones, we've really, think about the shape of your spine. So the first one we were sort of curling and rounding and unfolding. And now we're taking this lovely curve from side to side. Brilliant. Let's take the arms out to the side. And let's bring one arm up and one arm down. And I'm actually trying to actively reach this one up to the ceiling and relaxing that underneath arm today. So lifting this one up, so it's almost like my side, my reach is up again. This one is just hanging. A couple more of those, reach up. Can you get a little bit more height in that top arm? Holding this one here, and I'm going to explore that space. I'm going to let that top arm reach across a little bit more, and then see how much of a curve I can get in the side of my back coming through the centre. Find yourself nice and square here. Lifting up before you go over, and then pushing away and breathing. Try not to get stuck. Try and keep moving. Up to the top. Leaning over, pushing those hips away. Pushing down through the feet, make this the last one, as you come back to the centre each time. So lengthening away, absolutely breathing nice and strongly. Good. Okay, we're going to continue to explore that movement in a moment. So coming back to a little bit more subtle movement. So arms are rounded, like you're hugging a tree. And I want you to think about your shoulder blades. The shoulder blades, when you're standing in good posture, they're nice and flat against the rib cage wall at the back. So from this rounded position, you're going to reach your arms forwards. So it's like you're keeping this same space here. Imagine I'm holding a great big beach ball. You're going to reach your arms forwards, but the goal is to bring the shoulder blade from here, I can't do it with this hand, maybe I can, from there to bring it round to the side. So my fingertips are moving where my shoulder blade is moving. So I'm moving my shoulder blades around the outside edge, if you like, of the barrel of my rib cage at the back. trying not to, I've gone a bit shouldery there, trying to keep the shoulders down. So we're just letting that movement come forwards, and then I'm pinning them back a little bit. So I'm squeezing them towards each other. Shape of my arms, the position of my arms isn't changing. So this is quite subtle. So we're rounding the back, pinning those shoulder blades back together again. Good, let's take the arms out to the side now. So I generally, and keep them quite rounded, we're going to bring that same movement forwards, and this time I'm going to let the rest of my spine join in a little bit. I'm going to push back between my shoulder blades. I'm going to bend my knees and tuck my pelvis under. And then I'm opening out, and I'm not consciously squeezing the shoulder blades together, but they will work towards each other. I'm just trying to open up at the front of my chest. And coming forwards and opening up. So the shape of my spine, my upper spine, is joining in. Well, my lower back is joining in as well, to sort of counteract that going forwards position. Brilliant. Okay, so let's take one arm at a time. So one arm out to the side, just standing up nice and tall. We're going to bend the knees and we're going to bring that arm forwards. And I'm rounding my back in the same way I just did. From there, in fact, probably easier if I go that way, I'm going to lift that arm up to the side and I'm going to look underneath it. So now I'm incorporating that side stretch as well, and then coming upright and lowering that arm, taking the other arm up to the side, so everything is in its normal position, neutral position, rounding forwards, I'm rounding my back. I'm going to take this arm across to the side and to the corner, so I'm sideways on. If I come around here, I'm looking underneath that arm, then I'm coming up and lowering. Let's do one more each with one arm, out to the side, round forwards, curve it round and come up, and one more on the other side. Round forwards, so my hand is opposite my shoulder, tuck, take a side bend, sweep that arm around, so you're looking underneath it, now come up to the top. Let's take both arms. So we're up to the side, we're pitching forwards. This time, from here, we're going to lift the arms and the chest, we're going to stick the butt out, come down over your thighs, let the head relax, and then roll up. As we roll up, we're bringing those arms out to the side. So we're there. We're reaching forwards, rounding that back. Almost keep that rounded shape as you lift. Now there's your chest lift. Open out those arms. Stick your butt out, find your legs, relax all the way down, and then that's nicely gone into our chest and back lift. Two more, out to the side, round. It really doesn't matter if you don't feel like you're doing anything like what I'm doing. Absolutely fine. We all move differently in our bodies. And if this really isn't familiar to your body, it's absolutely fine. I want you to just think about trying to push your body to the edges. You've got this space around you, and it's almost like you're trying to touch that space with your back as you come up. You're trying to, when you're pushing, bringing those arms forward, you're trying to push back. When you're taking your arms out to the side, you're trying to reach that side and that side at the same time. It's that sort of sense of just a great big expanding movement. Great, okay, let's take that into, let's just take legs nice and wide. I'm going to just join in a little bit more with the legs now. So let's take our chest lift and come all the way down, just to a nice wide legged squat position. My toes are out very slightly, not much, and I'm just transferring my weight from side to side. Hands are on my legs, quite supportive. It's not quite a sumo squat. If you are used to my classes, and we do this sumo squat quite a lot, this is a supportive position, but look at the angle of my back. I'm after you having your back nice and flat. So it's parallel to the floor. And then from there, just going from side to side. So it's quite compressive in the hips, and actually it's probably more comfortable to take your feet really nice and wide. And then just start to push from side to side. So straightening one leg as you go. Let's take the arms out to the side. So my arms are parallel to the floor, my shoulders are parallel to the floor. Strong work in the hips, just mobilising that hip nicely. I've gone even wider with my feet now. Brilliant. You might be able to just get your fingertips to the floor. That would be wonderful. Keep going from side to side. Should all be getting nice and warm now. So we're mobilising in those hips. And then let's just take the opposite hand to one foot, doesn't matter which one, and just sweep the other arm up towards the ceiling and then swap to the other side. So I'm going towards the leg that's bent, I'm taking the straight arm out to the side, I'm letting my shoulders, my chest open out. If that's not available to you and you can't actually reach the floor, you want to be here, that's absolutely fine. Keep the hands on the legs. You might want to have put your hands on the chair or something if that's nearby. The beauty of working from home, so to speak. Good, so this is just meant to be nice and freeing. Don't get too stressed if it's quite difficult. Brilliant, and then let's come back. Let's walk those feet in actually. Well, there's something I haven't done for a little while. In fact, let's explore this a little bit. Just have a little look. So I'm going to turn my toes in, my heels in, my toes in, my heels in. I've got my legs are bent, my hands are on the floor to support me, and then I'm going to go back out again. Heels, toes, heels, toes, heels, toes. Go nice and wide. Coming back in, toes, heels. I'm trying to turn the leg out in the hip socket. Come back to a comfortable parallel position. Just try that a couple of times and then rolling up through the spine, which actually brings us quite nicely into the next exercise, which is coming into a turned out first position. I'm just going to move this mat out of the way because it's a bit too sticky. Let's get that over there. Great, okay, this is much more, it's more comfortable for me to be here. So from your parallel position, hip width apart, we're going to pitch the weight forwards onto the balls of the feet. We're going to bring the heels together. And that for me, that's not quite, I want to go a little bit further than that. I'm in a fairly narrow V. I know I've got more turnout, more natural turnout, so I'm gonna need to take my feet a little bit wider. Just find where your parallel position is, and then the idea is to bring both heels together each time. Squeezing the heels together. Hopefully you'll feel a switching on at the tops of the thighs, pelvic floor, that whole area is where we're working. So we're activating our turnout muscles, and we're going to hold them there and build a bit of stamina. But the idea is that you turn from the hip socket, same as we just did with the feet, the whole leg then when we turned in, turned out. So I've come into my natural position, heels together preferably. If you find your knees are sort of vying for position, then maybe just go for calves. Maybe your heels don't naturally come together. I've got slightly bow legs, so this works for me, but just work with your body, don't beat yourself up about it. Just most importantly, make sure both legs are turned out evenly within the hip socket. Make sure everything else, you're not compensating anywhere else. And try and have the lower part of your leg together at some point. So if you can get your heels together, perfect. And then we're just going to keep those heels together and try and rise up, not very far. And you will instantly, I mean, I can feel it already, having taught a ballet bar class yesterday, so I'm very aware of my turnout muscles today. So as I'm lifting up, I can really feel, and as I'm trying to keep those heels together, or the calves together, or just the backs of the knees together, I I can feel pelvic floor has activated, inside thighs are working quite hard. Around the gluteal fold is all your turnout muscles. Keeping those heels together. Good job. If you can, we're going to raise the heels up. We're going to stay with the heels off the floor. And now you're going to bend your knees. Knees are going over the toes. And then you're straightening. So this is strong work on the legs, and then I'm lowering. In fact, let's stay up. Let's stay with those heels lifted off. Still together. So if I was to go into a full, complete rise all the way, my heels would be nowhere near each other. I need those heels to be together. Keep them up if you can. Bending the knees. Knees are going over the toes. Absolutely no different to a parallel knee bend, as long as you're keeping your good alignment. My postman. So squeezing the heels together, keeping the back really nice and upright. Couple more if you can. Knees are over the toes. This should be quite strong work. So you'll notice as you bend your knees go over your toes, there's a slight release in pelvic floor, tops of the thighs, but as soon as you bring those heels back together, it comes back on again. Good, and lowering, but don't relax. Try and stay in that position. We're going to add a little bit of rotation. I'm going to need to come forwards. I'm going to hit the wall behind me. So rotation in the upper body. So just bring your arms out in front of you, staying in that first position. Good to hold that. Palms are down. Shoulders are nice and square to your front. You're going to just pull one shoulder and one elbow back. It's a bow and arrow. Yeah, palms down. But they get that elbow high. Pulling one shoulder back and reaching the other one forwards, but your hips are staying square to the front. When you bring the hands back level with each other, the hips don't move anyway, but the shoulders come back to square. That's the one I was after. I'm pulling my other shoulder back, the elbow is going back far behind me, and I'm reaching this one forwards. This hip wants to join in, it wants to turn around. I'm trying not to let that happen by partly keeping the legs in this position, but also just opposing that a little bit. I'm pushing that hip forward, so we're there. So you're going to pull one elbow back, reach the other arm forwards, turn to look to that back elbow, extend the arm out to the corner, sweep it back round to square. And the other side. Elbow is high, reaching forwards, turn and look, extend that elbow and come back to the front. Good. Two more if you can. Pull the elbow back, push that same hip forwards, don't let it go. Elbow, reach the other arm. Reach the arm that stays at the front, reach it forwards. Good. If you can, here's your challenge. Try 4 more up with those heels lifted. Much stronger work now. Take your time. Elbow back. And extending. Keep those heels together if you can. I haven't gone quite as big as I did. It's not a very big movement anyway, but I'm going a bit more carefully because this is really quite challenging. If it's too much for you, lower those heels again if you can. 2 more to go. Push that hip forwards. Don't let it go. Keep that squeeze on tops of the thighs. We've got 1 more to go with there. Extending. And back to the front. And there. And let's have a little release and a good shake of those legs. Well done if you've managed that. Lovely. So let's just take that, let's just loosen that off a little bit. So feet are wide, insteps parallel. I'm keeping my head facing forwards. I'm just gently, because we were holding that all quite static for a moment, just gently letting my arms wrap around me. I'm not placing them. I'm just taking my shoulders. My arms are swinging. They're hitting my body at the end of the movement. My shoulders are rotating. My hips are rotating. And also my ankles are rotating. You can't keep your ankles fixed for this one. And then just to finish off, standing up really nice and tall, looking behind you. Well done. Hopefully that worked out. Good. Okay, we have got a wide leg hip hinge to get to the floor. End of your mat, moving your monitor. So my feet are as wide as the mat, so let's take a hip hinge all the way forward, stretching the backs of those legs. You're going to need that today when we take some hip circles a bit later on, so you need a good length in those hamstrings. Just simply do that. Listen to your body. How does that feel? I've just got my hands lightly touching on my knees, fronts of my thighs, but otherwise I'm really focusing on how my hamstrings feel today. A little bit sore, especially one side more than the other. Making sure your shoulders stay really square, so there's a tendency to go a little bit lower and let those shoulders round forwards. Don't let that happen. In fact, let's place the hands on the shoulders and just take some circles with your elbows. Helps to just focus the position of your upper back. Keep the neck nice and long. Changing direction. You're just drawing a a golf ball size circle at your elbows. And at the same time, we're getting a good hamstring stretch. Breathing, talking, maybe bending those knees, straightening those legs a couple of times. In fact, let's do that. You could take your arms out to the side, which I won't because I'm going to hit the wall, but if you wanted to, so like we were earlier. So as I'm bending and straightening, I'm thinking about hips, that lovely compression in that front of that hip joint, the shape of my back, the angle of my back isn't changing. I'm going to just pitch my weight a tiny bit more forwards and tap both heels, and make sure that I can tap both heels, and I'm almost lifting my chest up a tiny bit and tilting my pelvis a little bit more to get an extra stretch in those hamstrings. And then bending the knees, and let's just stay here a moment actually. I feel like I want to stretch out that lower back a little bit. Reach your hands forwards, but don't put any weight through those fingertips. Lengthening the spine, and I've just come back to that sway from side to side slightly, so I can feel a lovely stretch out in my lower back. And then let's walk those hands all the way forwards, bringing your feet close together. Get your hands underneath your shoulders for the plank, just holding that position there. Brilliant. And then lowering the knees with control if you can. Good job. Okay, so we have got all fours work today. We are going to do lifting. We're going to squeeze the feet and knees together, and we're just going to take some knee lifts to set the torso, and then we're going to maybe take the hands away after that. So a bit of endurance, bit of stamina building here, making sure that you're in the perfect position. So hands are underneath the shoulders for the moment. Spread the fingers and thumbs far apart. Make sure that back of head and neck is lifted, the shoulders are slid back towards your hips. Squeezing knees and feet and ankles together, curling the toes under, lifting those knees off and just holding it there. Lifting the knees off half an inch. Think half an inch and you'll end up doing an inch. Holding that there, drawing that belly button in. I can see in the mirror that the shape of my back did not change at all. I'm really trying to squeeze my knees together, continuing to wake up that midline of your spine, all those muscles around the pelvic floor, and lowering. Have a little relax if you need to. So if that was too intense, you could just do that on its own for a couple more times, just holding for as long as you can. Maybe give those Wrist a little bit of a twiddle to release the wrist. But if you can, I'd like you to stay with the feet and the knees together, but we're going to put thumbs and forefinger together. So we've got a narrow base for the hands. Curling those toes under again, and we're lifting here. In fact, no, let's go a wider base at the legs. So we've got a narrow base at the hands, sorry, and a wider base at the knees. This will make a bit more sense. We're lifting both knees off, and if you can, just release one hand and replace. It's actually quite strong. Release the other hand and replace. If this is too much for you with your knees off, keep the knees down. It's absolutely fine. There's still strong work. So you could just be here. Lifting, if you're here and you haven't got those knees lifted off, lift that elbow all the way back. Think about the shape of your collarbone in relationship to the floor, swapping from side to side. If you can, this is much harder, knees are hovering, ooh, same thing. Maybe only 4 of these at a time. I think the last time I did this on my elbows. Elbows and knees, which is a little bit easier. That was tough. Give those wrists and hands a good old twiddle. Brilliant. Let's take our hips back on our heels for threading the needle. So rotation there. So toes are together, knees are nice and wide. If you can, come all the way back, hips on your heels. Come down onto your elbows. Try and get your elbows fairly close together. Just again, wiggling about in that position. I'm just rolling my hips from side to side. So I'd like your elbows to be quite close together underneath your shoulders if you can. I'm going to bring them back a little bit. And it's a bit like what we just did. If your hands are far apart and you're taking one hand away, it's going to be much harder to keep everything stable. If you're coming from a narrow base, it's relatively easy. So we want a narrow base for that support. So elbows are together if you can. From here, we're going to take a salute. Just watch me a moment. From this salute, I'm going to take rotation. I'm trying to look past that elbow up towards the ceiling. Taking that same arm, I'm going to come through the centre and stretch it through to the other side. And actually, as I do that, I'm going to reach that arm away. In fact, no. Let's do the open out rotation, and then we'll do the other one afterwards. So, elbows are together underneath your shoulders. Taking probably the one closest to the screen would be helpful. Then you won't be looking away from me. Elbow out to the side. Think about your shoulder girdle is nice and level and parallel to the floor. And then you're just opening that elbow, the shoulders, trying to look past that elbow and come back to square. And opening out. Let's do 3 on each side. It's strong. Think about the weight through your knees, through your legs, through your hips. They should all be staying the same, equal. No twisting, no leaning, no adjusting. It's only the upper body that's moving. Bring your elbows together, swap sides. So you're going to be looking away from the camera now. Elbows up, as high as you can get it. Shoulders, rib cage rotating, head turning, but nothing else changing. 3 of these. Keep your breathing nice and even. Come back to the centre. Did you have a tight side? If you had a tight side and you really noticed it, do another whole set on that tight side. If you didn't notice which side was tighter, do another 3 on each side. So rotating. This time though, heighten your awareness of where you're moving from. Are you compensating? Are you taking extra tweaks and twists in the body just to get the job done? Try not to, especially if you're working through only on that tighter side. Try and see if you can get it going a little bit more each time you do it. Good. Okay, so that was rotating outwards, if you like, from your central line. Let's go for rotating across and threading the needle. So hands are nice and wide. I'm going to stretch my arms forwards. Again, I'm going to take over towards the screen first, so I'm going underneath that arm. My hands were shoulder width apart. Taking the back of that hand onto the floor. If you can, rest your head, rest that shoulder there, and then just take a little roll over that shoulder if you want to. So really breathing deeply with this one. Try and relax into it. And swapping sides. Just one more of these on the other side. So hands are shoulder width apart at least. Take that hand through. Try and relax your head and your shoulder down to the floor. Don't worry if you can't. You could be on this elbow if that helps. On the arm that's up in front of you. You could be on that elbow just to ease the stress. And then if you can, roll over. Not a very big movement. Doesn't need to be. It's just about mobilising and finding that end range. Well done. Brilliant. We are going on to, we're going to sit up first. So sitting up nice and tall. Just realised I probably could do with pulling that monitor down a little bit. Okay, so if you can, sitting up as tall as possible. We're again going to try and isolate the legs in the hip sockets. And if you just place your hands behind you and go onto your fingertips, so we're not leaning back here. I usually do this one with the arms out at the side, but I just want you to place your hands on the floor behind you and be up on your fingertips and your thumbs, and just use that bit of pressure through the floor to help you pin open your chest a little bit and sit as upright as possible. And it's just helping me to sort of, it's almost like I'm trying to lift my bottom off of the floor, but I'm not, it's just there. So watch as we start to do this exercise that you don't collapse. So right up on those sit bones if you can, pushing those hands down into the floor. And if your body proportions aren't the same as mine, I think I've got quite, I don't know, long body, short arms, whatever. I sometimes struggle with these sort of things, but if your hands need to be a bit further away, just to go on your fingertips, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. And then let's go from here. So legs are out beautifully straight. We're going to point the feet and feel like you're really extending over the tops of your feet. And then I'm going to bend my knees and I'm actually going to slide my heels away. And then pushing the backs of the knees down and extending the feet and flexing and raising and extending, trying to go through the toes as well. My foot is clicking each time. Straightening and pointing. All the while working, I'm really conscious of all the muscles in my back as well. Working hard, building the stamina to hold my spine in that nice upright position. Good. Great. Let's go for flexing the feet, turning, and I'm keeping my legs straight now, turning the legs out in the hip socket, pointing the feet and bringing them back to parallel. So flex, turn out, point and parallel. Flex, turn out, point and parallel. One more, flex, turn out and point and parallel. Let's reverse it. Pointed feet, turning out, flex there. Bring them up to parallel. Try and lift a little bit higher at the top of that head. Reach the toes away. Turn the legs out. Flex the feet. Have a look down at your legs. Are they equal? Are they symmetrical? Does one leg turn out better than the other? Is one a bit tight, a bit wonky? Probably is. We're really not very symmetrical. Your tighter side in your hip will probably be the one that doesn't turn out quite as well. Last one. Well done. Now have a little well-earned rest back, have a little collapse and a nice bash your legs into the floor. Should make a bit of noise and let them roll in and out quite strongly. Take hold of the thighs, give them all a bit of a wobble. Calves, as feet go. It's actually, we don't really ever just let everything completely relax. It's good to let that happen. Brilliant. Okay, we are coming onto our backs. Yeah, let's come down onto our backs. And we're going to take some abdominal curls to start with. Abdominal curls with leg extension into some abdominal ovals. And then we've got our hip circles. I'm hoping you can see me, I think. Okay. Okay, so let's sit forwards at the front of your mat. Feet and knees hip width apart. Rounding that spine, tucking that pelvis under. All of that lovely work we did standing. Unravel down to the floor, finding your neutral spine in the mat. So personally I like to have a bit of a wiggle about as I do this. So I'm just letting my legs go from side to side, finding the middle position for my pelvis so that it's equally weighted either side of my spine, bringing those feet quite close. Making sure feet and knees are in line with my hips, not letting the legs roll out, my knees roll out. Thinking about the weight through my feet equally around the outside edge and the inside edge. Sorry, so big toe joint, little toe joint and heels. I tend to roll out to the outside edge, funnily enough. So think about the big toe joint being in contact. Neutral pelvis. How is your lower back curve? Pubic bone, hip bones on the same plane. Ribs relaxed, drawn down. Ribs at the back, lower ribs at the back, just brushing the mat. Collarbone, nice and open. Ribs at the front, relaxed, drawn down, heavy if you like. Collarbone open, shoulder blades roughly equally weighted. Unfortunately, won't be completely equally weighted because we're lopsided because of our handedness. So one side will maybe be a little bit more developed than the other, but just be aware of that. Be as open as you can. Make sure the chin isn't too lifted. Tuck the chin in, lengthen the back of the neck, and then feel like the middle of the back of your head is heavy. And then we are good to go. We're going to take the hands at the back of the head. We're going to interlace the fingers so we're totally supporting that head. Elbows are forwards. Let's take some abdominal curls, but let's bring the feet and the knees and squeeze them together. So working those inside thighs again. Squeeze the knees together. Let's just take an abdominal curl. Breath out, breath in, breath out, breath in. Or just even natural normal breathing. Don't even set the breathing. What you do need to set is here. Rib cage drawing down, pelvic floor lifted. No change in that lower abdominal wall. No pushing up, no bunching, no pushing down, depending on how curved you are, but no change. I'm forgetting to squeeze my knees together then, because I'm talking about too much other stuff. Every time you come up, squeeze the knees more. Activate inside thighs, pelvic floor. Check, no tension in the head. Or the neck, sorry, not in the head. You might have tension in the head from my confusing you. Squeeze the knees together. Head is heavy in the hands, the neck is the bit that we don't have tension. That's the one. Okay, we're going to add on a leg slide. So let's have the feet and knees hip width apart, so we're not taking that squeeze through the central line now. As you're coming up for your abdominal curl, slide one leg away along the floor. Check that your pelvis, your hips have stayed absolutely level. You can see, you should be able to see that. Come up to comfy position, if that's all you can manage for the moment. And then as you slide that leg back in, trying not to bring your mat with you, come clear from comfy position, little bit higher, and then lower down. So we're coming up, sliding the leg away. Breath out. Hold it here. Breath in. In fact, as you take your breath in, try and come up a little bit higher. Take the breath in to clear the shoulder blades. Hold it there. Breath out. And breath in to lower. No relaxing, no collapsing. Breath out. Comfy position. That's comfy position. Shoulder tips can touch the floor. Breath in. Switching everything on a little bit more. Staying there. Breath out. Pelvis is staying level. Breath in to lower, and again. Another 3. Breath out. Breath in. Breath out. Stay there. Breath in to lower. 3 more. If you did that first one with me, maybe you need to do another 4. Breath in. Clear those shoulder blades. Make sure that head is relaxed. Breath out and breath in. 2 more. Breath out. Comfy. Breath in. Breath out. Get that last bit of air out. Breath in. 2 more. Here we go. I think. Breath out. No, it's the last one, is it? I don't know. Breath out. Breath in. Breath out. All the way. Breath in. Let's take 1 more for luck. I've lost my timing. Sorry. Breath out. Comfy position. Breath in. Hold it there. Breath out. All the way. And then this time lower. Hand collapse. Have a little roll of the head from side to side, but hopefully neck shouldn't have been too bad. We're going to take abdominal ovals. Your choice. You can either have your knees together, squeezing them together as we just did, or you can have the soles of the feet together, let the legs drop out to the side. Either way, your goal is to keep your pelvis absolutely still. So elbows a little bit wider this time. We're sort of going to take the bottom half of your abdominal curl, if you like, your abdominal oval, sorry. I'm going to roll over towards the camera. I'm going across my shoulder blade. I'm lifting up towards the corner. I'm actually thinking of lifting this top elbow up towards the ceiling. I'm going to roll across my shoulder blades without letting my head drop down to the other side. Onto the shoulder blade fully and lifting the elbow up towards the ceiling. Hips, pelvis, legs are staying still. Roll across the back. Open out the elbow that's on the floor. Lift the other one up towards the ceiling. You should be getting a wicked activation in your obliques. Keep the head heavy. Keep it off of the floor. To the other side. Let's do another 4 of these. Roll and lift. And roll and lift. Trying to keep those legs still. If you're squeezing your knees together, keep them still. Keep the knees squeezing together all the way. I think that was those 4. Now have a little look in. We're going to roll over to the side. Now we're taking the top part of the oval across the top and then across the back. So we're going in the same direction now for 4 times. Here we go. 4 times. Up and over. Roll across the shoulder blades. And up and over. Really keeping that pelvis still. Head is heavy. Shouldn't be any strain on the neck. It should just be in that abdominal wall. This is my last one in this direction. I'm going to change direction without having a rest in between. Last 4. Up and over. Roll across the shoulder blades. Keep those elbows out. Take that top half off. It's like you're lifting the whole of the rib cage off the floor. I'm going to do one more for luck. I've lost count again. Yeah, I think that was an extra one on that side. Oh, work. Woo, well done. That didn't hurt my neck at all actually, but I really felt that in the front of my ribs. I'm just going to let my legs loll from side to side. Brilliant. We are taking some hip circles. So we are going to stretch hamstrings first actually. In fact, let's stretch out the whole of the front of the hip. So again, it's that thing of keeping the hip still, moving the thigh bone, moving the leg within the hip joint itself. So I'm going to draw this knee in, compressing this hip. I'm going to stretch my other leg away. And I'm just going to circle both feet at the ankles. 2 or 3 in each direction. So getting a nice compression in this hip. Other leg is stretched out, getting a nice stretch at the front of that hip-ish. It's not a huge stretch. And then I'm going to let that knee go away, and if you can, I'd like you to try and work towards a nice straight leg up towards the ceiling. So just let the foot drop, let the knee bend, and then straighten. So if I kept my leg here, I'm not the most flexible. I'm going to just about get my leg straight. So I've let my leg go a little bit further away. In fact, I'm going to just breathe a bit of life into the other leg and foot as well. And I can manage this. This is relatively easy. So, keeping that leg straight, I'm going to flex that foot. I'm just going to ease that straight leg in a little bit more. And then while we're there, let's just circle those legs, circle those feet, feet at the ankles. Brilliant. Staying on this side with this leg up so that you know what's going to happen on the other side. So my underneath leg, my leg that's along the floor, the foot is flexed, I'm pushing down into the floor a little bit. Leg that's up in the air, I'm going to point that foot, my arms are out to the side, palms are down. I'm going across my midline. I'm going to let this hip come off the floor a little bit. I'm going low, not too wide out at the side. Your goal is to keep the opposite hip, the non-moving hip, on that straight leg side, absolutely still. If you go too far, potentially that will happen. So keep that hip absolutely glued. You can allow this one to lift off. So it's a bit of a lopsided circle. It is a circle, maybe a bit more of an oval shape. It's not quite a capital D, but it's a sort of a shape that's going over this way. 5 or so, I think I've done loads more than that, in each direction. If this is absolutely impossible because hamstrings aren't a good length, you can do 2 things. You can either move the leg and keep the leg bent to the same shape, which is what I'm doing now, or you can do your hip circles with your leg bent and think of your knee being the equivalent to your toes if you had a straight leg. So just again keep the leg in the same shape. It's just about the thigh bone moving around in the hip socket. Well done. Let's do all of that on the other side. So draw the other knee in, compressing the hip joint, circling the feet at the ankles. This is nice and relaxed. And breathe. Excellent. I'm going to let that leg go away a little bit. My right leg is my tighter leg and my hamstrings at the moment. Left leg is, so that straight leg is the one that's on the floor, is the foot is flexed and going up to the ceiling and releasing. Whoo. It might be that your thigh is there. What I'm actually interested in is you exploring where is that point where you can actually get a beautiful straight leg. Don't really need any more than 90 degrees, but 90 degrees is good, it's handy, it will mean that you can pretty much do everything efficiently without cheating. So this is the one we want to be working for, and then if you can, try and go a little bit beyond it. Ease that leg in towards you. Circling the feet here. So I quite like to circle my feet or twiddle my toes or something when I'm taking this sort of stretch. It takes my mind off of the fact that this is all stretching, and it's taking your brain's attention right to the very end of that limb. And you can feel it all, it's affecting the stretch. It will really help to get that nerve connection more than anything all the way through as well. And the blood flow and everything else. So, that leg is up nice and straight. Other one is flexed, foot pointed at the top, across the line of the body, out to the side but not too far. Keeping this stabilizing hip glued to the mat for the outside part of that circle. So remember your alternatives. Either the leg bent but staying in the same shape but not very bent, or 90 degrees bent and draw the circle with your kneecap. Lots of lovely mobilising in that hip. Great job. And then let's just bring those knees in and place your hands on your knees, and again circling around here. Sometimes when the hamstrings aren't great, or it just feels like everything's a little bit grippy with that one if you're not careful. This feels quite nice to me as well. I'm just going to let my hips roll from side to side. Fantastic. Finishing off on your tummies. Have a quick look. So we're going to take leg kicks. All about stretching the front line of your hips, your hip flexors. For me, I really struggle with this exercise. Some people are quite comfortable up here, up on their elbows, doing this one, but personally that's too much for me. What tends to happen if you're tight at the front of your hip, as you bend that knee in, and I can see it in the mirror, it makes the front of my hip really lift off, because this is really tight. So I prefer to work down flat, and I put my hands underneath my hip bones, and I'm sort of cupping my hip bones. I'm crushing my hand a little bit with my hip bones, and pushing my pubic bone in, so that I'm really trying to lengthen out that joint as I lift the foot up. So the exercise is to keep the legs really parallel. So you're going to be a little bit lifted in the chest. Just watch me a moment if you're not sure of this. I would like you to do 3 kicks on each side, single legs, and you take a pointed foot, a flexed foot, a pointed foot, and then you lower. And then you swap sides. Point and flex and point and lower. So the other thing that you'll find if you're quite tight is you'll want to turn the leg out. So this is me turning my leg out. Your thigh needs to stay really parallel. You will find, your body will find all sorts of ways to cheat at this sort of exercise if you're tight there. If you're absolutely fantastic up here and you're on those elbows and you're comfortable here and it's absolutely no problem at all, and you can get your heel to your bottom, beautiful. Carry on and stick with that one. Make sure you're lifting your upper back out of the floor. So I'm here, lifting my head up a little bit, opening up the shoulders and the front of the chest, and off I go. So point and flex and point and lower. I can really feel the tendency for my pelvis to want to twist and rotate. I'm trying to keep both hip bones equally weighted. I'm trying to keep the tracking, the alignment of my knee, one more, true. So everything is in a good parallel position. So 3 pulses, point the foot, flex the foot, point the foot and lower. 1 more each side, point and flex and point and lower. And feel the activation of the hamstrings as well. And point and lower. Wonderful. I'm going to come up onto all 4s. Get those knees underneath my hips, and as always, do what feels right for you, what feels right for me, as always, pretty much, is a good old wiggle about. Spine circles, vertical spine circles, horizontal spine circles. I'm going to curl my toes under, lifting my hips, just push that chest down and through, back through my arms for a downward dog. I'm going to walk my feet one at a time, padding through the heels. I'm then going to walk my feet to my hands. Finishing with my feet parallel, hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider, nodding that head, and then unravelling the spine all the way up to the top. Oh, I'm quite surprised I can still see myself in that one. And good job, thank you very much.